we good to go?
I show 9 a.m.
Okay. Open the Selma City Council special meeting, August 12th, 2019, 9 a.m. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Here.
Councilmember Guerra?
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Here.
Mayor Robertson?
Here, potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item now, recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Oral communications, notice to the public. During public comments, if you wish to address the City Council under Government Code Section 54954.3a, you may only address the City Council concerning any item that has been described in the notice for the special meeting. Members of the public shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Does anybody have any oral communications today? Moving on to the public hearing. This will be a public hearing to receive community input regarding district boundaries for district-based elections pursuant to Elections Code Section 10010. Report, please.
For the record, I just want to let everyone know that Shalice Tilton from NDC is on teleconference. Good morning, Shalice.
Good morning, Mayor and council
Good morning.
members. It's my pleasure to be joining you again for your second public hearing. I'm going to go through the same presentation. We'll do it rather quickly, so stop me if you have any questions. Just as a review, there are two sets of laws that the city could potentially face in scrutiny of its election system, and that would be the California Voting Rights Act and then also the Federal Voting Rights Act. So once the city converts to a by-district system, it would no longer be vulnerable to a lawsuit under the California Voting Rights Act. So after you complete this process, if you end up with completing it and going with a by-district system, then you can no longer be exposed to a threat of lawsuit. I'm having trouble hearing the mayor and the council, so Raina, if there's a question, could you let me know?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So just in essence, the California Voting Rights Act, it makes it easier to file a lawsuit and be successful in suing a city. And we've seen that there are several cities that have faced similar lawsuits. Fortunately, the City of Selma has not received a demand letter yet threatening a lawsuit. So what happens is when a demand letter is filed, the way the law is written, whoever filed that demand letter can recover $30,000 in their expenses. We've, to date, not one of those invoices be less than $30,000. So Selma has avoided that because you've already filed your resolution of intention and you're proceeding with the process. Should you not continue with the process or proceed within the prescribed timeline, then you could be vulnerable to receiving a demand letter and that $30,000 and then potentially a lawsuit if you did not complete. So on your screen, you likely have the screen showing all of the key settlements and the millions of dollars that other cities have had to spend in settling lawsuits. All of them have resulted in changing from their at-large election system. So let's move on to the districting process. Any questions about that?
No.
We have no questions.
Okay, the districting process requires 5 public hearings. We are in the second public hearing. It's a little bit frustrating because the second public hearing, the council cannot deliberate on maps. The purpose of this public hearing and the one that we held on August 5th was to receive input on communities of interest, how you want the maps drawn, what makes sense to keep together. And I did take some notes from the last ones that I'll mention, and then we can add to that list or refine that list if the council desires. The good news is on September 3rd, you'll be able to start seeing maps and deliberating on maps, and that's helpful for the council and the public once you start seeing the visuals of the maps and seeing potentially how the districts could look. It's a lot easier to get a grasp on what these maps could potentially look like. So that will happen on the 3rd. On the 3rd, you can narrow down the maps to a few focus maps on September 3rd, and then on the 16th, say we come back with, 1 or 2 that you like. We can make revisions to those maps if you desire, and then ultimately land on a map and adopt it by October 7th. Okay? actually have your first reading of your ordinance, hopefully on September 16th, and your second reading on October 7th. Go to the next screen. So when we're drawing this map, we must have equal population in each of the 5 districts, and we're using the 2010 census data. So each district will have roughly 4,744 total people. That includes citizens and non-citizens, babies, all people in each of the districts. There can be a little variation, but there can be no more than 10% difference between the least populated district and your highest populated district. So they need to be fairly well balanced. Also, we cannot draw a map that is totally or predominantly based on race. So there can be no racial gerrymandering where the map lines, the only explanation for how they're drawn is based on race. It can be one factor, but it needs to be several factors. On the right-hand side, we list those factors that are traditionally that we follow. Understanding we can't always follow all of them, but typically we try to accomplish as many as possible if that's council's direction. So communities of interest is a big thing. What neighborhoods make sense to keep together, what neighborhoods align with one another, and what neighborhoods maybe should be separated. We try for compactness when possible. Contiguous is requirement, so you have to have the boundaries of each of the district all touch. So you can't intervene a second district to get to the rest of your first district.
That'd be interesting.
You can't have a map that looks like polka dots and call that your District 1. It all has to be contiguous. When we talk about respecting voters' wishes, this relates to the seated incumbents. And if it's possible to draw a map that does not pair incumbents in the same district, we like to present that option. And the reason why is, and I'll give this example, oftentimes it would be possible for me to draw 3 or 4 council members in one district. I'd be sending the message to the voters that, sorry, if you like all 3 of these council members, you can only vote for one. So we like to respect the voters' wishes, let the voters determine who has earned re-election and who hasn't earned re-election, and as opposed to a demographer's boundaries deciding, telling the voters, sorry, you might like all of them, but you can only choose one. That bottom one is planned for future growth. That's grayed out because we'll be doing this again in 2021, and so we can't really take into consideration future growth because it's going to change again by 2021. And if you plan for future growth, you have to go back all 10 years and count all of the demolition and all of the new construction, and it's just not worth the exercise at this late in the game where we're going to be redoing this when the new census numbers come out. The next slide. This is demographic data that will be produced for each of the maps. So we'll have 5 districts, and each of the 5 districts will have this set of data with its corresponding to each district. And it's a good indicator of how you're doing with your communities of interest. So oftentimes you'll look at maybe housing status, single-family homes versus multifamily homes. If you have a higher percentage of multifamily homes in one district, that sometimes is a good indicator that that's a like neighborhood. So you have many apartment complexes, perhaps, that are all in one district, and they share similar concerns and similar issues. You can look at the other categories: household income, English spoken at home, or the language spoken at home, immigration status. Those types of things also help to define communities of interest. The second category down is the citizen voting age population that you see on this demographic summary. This citizen voting age population is important because this is the category that the courts look at when they're looking at the voting strength of your districts once they're drawn. So if you have which we do, we have a high Latino population. Now look at this citizen voting age population category. The citizen voting age population are citizens, so they're U.S. citizens who are 18 years of age. So they're older. So 18 years of age or older, that means that they're eligible to vote, and so they could potentially vote And that is why the courts will look at that and determine the voting strength of your district. So you want to make sure that you have, you'll have several, I'm sure, districts that have a majority of Hispanic citizen voting age population. If you didn't, there'd be a concern because of the high percentage that you have existing in the city. Okay, does that make sense?
It does.
Yep.
Okay. The next slide, showing the concentration areas in the Latino community, and they're virtually everywhere. The note on here says except the east and west edges, but those are not heavily populated areas. So they're virtually everywhere. And you don't have any large geographic concentrations of Asian Americans, African Americans, or Native Americans. So really the protected class group that we're speaking of is the Latino group. When we're talking about protected class groups, in this case, this is a protected class group based on minority language. So throughout the history of our election system in the United States, we have not always had election materials available in Spanish or other languages. So that is why the Latino group is considered a protected class group for purposes of the California Voting Rights Act and the Federal Voting Rights Act. Next slide. So as we did in the last public hearing, we'll be asking for input on what makes sense for neighborhoods to be kept together. Many neighborhoods will come together based on common issues or neighborhood activities or maybe some kind of concerns about, traffic or land use, those type of things. And then also there could be a case where a community wants to be divided into and have multiple voices in election. As you recall, I mentioned, my case of a retirement community where I would think it would be a good idea if half of our community was represented by one trustee and half community was represented by a second trustee, so that when we're having our meetings at our clubhouse, we have two coming. Okay. There's some samples of what a compact map would look like, and that was one of the directions given for a possible draft map for NDC to prepare is just simply prepare a compact map. And so I did take notes of that to provide one that's just maybe based on north, south, east, west, and maybe a central district. Here's some that have sample of multiple representation maps. So Pasadena, all of them wanted to touch Colorado Boulevard. South Pasadena, they wanted to have across various neighborhoods, so they kind of took a vertical approach, more or less. And then Central Unified wanted to have a little bit of the urban and a little bit of the rural in each of the districts. So you can see they fan out to the high concentrated populated areas, from the high concentrated populated areas out to the farmland areas. So at this point, we want to talk about, what kind of community of interest, what would you like to see reflected in maps, neighborhoods that should be kept together. Some of the notes that I took last time is to present for NDC to possibly prepare a map that would have multiple representation of the downtown area, meaning that we'd have more than one district, several districts that would touch the downtown area. And then on the opposite end, maybe a single representation of the downtown area. There was also a comment of perhaps a map that shows multiple districts that extended west of Highway 99. And lastly, the compact map that would just show simply north, south, east, west in the central district. So that concludes my presentation. You can open the public hearing, and I can answer any questions or answer any questions now, whatever is your pleasure.
Great, thanks. I'll refer it back to the council. Any clarifying? With that, I'll open it up to the public for public input, since this is a public hearing.
Good morning. Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. I was just looking at the city map, and I guess it would be the compact version. I drew some basic lines dividing the city into 5 parts, north, south, east, west. My feeling is the area around the hospital, the more upper middle class, I guess you could call it, all together in one area. The barrio in another area. The the west side of town, behind the high school and all that area, and then northwest area, which would include the new developments. I believe there's going to be some new developments there. And then the east side, the boundaries that I used were the main streets in town: Floral, McCall, Rose Avenue, Huntsman, and yeah, those are the major cross streets that I used as dividing points. So I just wanted to submit this as my idea to go along with whatever you have.
Please do, thank you. We'll make sure that that's passed on to the demographer as they make their maps, and they're gonna come up with, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, multiple potential maps for the September 3rd
Yes.
meeting.
Shalice, are we accepting maps at this point, or just option, or will you just be accepting the information that she presented?
Oh, maps are excellent.
Perfect. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, and those comments are great comments for us to be able to get an idea of what communities. That's excellent feedback for us.
Okay, so we'll let the record just show that Teresa Salas submitted a map.
And if you could just send it to us.
Of course.
Anybody else have any input? Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to the council. Does anybody have any comment at this time? Again, it's kind of hard, you know, when we don't have any maps in front of us to comment.
Well, you know what, I'll be honest with you, Scott, you know, when we hire these people to geographically set their expertise in setting up maps, and I really wanted to reach out to these people and say, hey, we try to, how would I say, we want to be fair in our city government and the elected officials that are up here right now, and we've got to find ways to make it fair for the people that are up here to find how another word to say is continue serving, but yet be fair in our boundaries to make it right for the citizens of Selma. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because I experienced our neighbor down in Kingsburg area, you know, people that how would I say it, on committees on the council, and unfortunately, when they redistrict our map, you know, how would I say, two people that live in the same geographic area no longer could serve. It's just the one person had it was three altogether. And unfortunately, when you lose the experience on leadership in government, when you have veterans or people that understand how to open doors in our other geographical areas in government, it's a challenging, especially in this time and age. You know, so you try to find a way to facilitate these issues. It's tough.
Especially when we're going on populations that
Yeah,
are
population.
8% lower
yeah.
when they did the census 10 years
Sense.
ago.
And
then
what, you know, what
there's
gets me is
potential growth in the future,
after
too.
we get done with this, 2020, we could do it again.
Do a
So, I mean,
turn
it's
right around,
another,
do it again.
it's another waste of, oh, I shouldn't say waste of money, but another money that we have to put aside for this.
If we did we still
You know.
kind of risk that $30,000 letter and then
but,
some.
But after looking at the geographical area, the population structure, the way it's laid out, I don't. I mean, I look at this council here. I don't. The geographical council right now it meets the criteria.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're moving forward on the district again anyhow. So
So your input is to make sure that there's a balance between
the balance. I want a balance.
reflecting the voters' will
Yeah.
with
Because
elected
people-
officials who are in office, not
Yeah, because people voted
arbitrarily taking
yeah,
them
people
out through
voted people in
districting.
office right now to want the representation, but yet I don't want to. how would I say, I don't wanna lose reputation of these people that the public already voted to, so, oh man, I voted for this guy, now we redistrict and he's gone, you know what I mean? You know?
Right.
Yeah, I wanna be the
Through just
fairness, I wanna be the fairness when we do the districting.
Through just mapping rather
Yeah.
than the voters' will.
And I think we can achieve that.
Anybody else comments?
My comments are of a different nature. When we have the forums or the public input, when we actually look at maps and stuff, is that gonna be done here at City Hall, or are we gonna be out in the community at a school or theater, or do it at something like that?
They are scheduled for here at City Hall.
Okay, and we're gonna have 5 of them or 3?
We have a total of 5, but this is our second one, so we'll have
3.
3 more, 2 with the maps, and the 5th one would be actually,
The decision.
the decision, yeah, adopting.
Okay.
So I have a question. What have we done prior? What have we done prior, or what are we going to do prior to these meetings to inform and really get out to the people, aside of us just posting it and having the paper probably posted? Because I understand and I know that and I'll go back to all different areas, from the east to the west. How are we really going to get the people to shake it up and tell them, hey, look, it's you guys' best interest to come on and ask us, so tomorrow morning that when we do finalize this, we don't have people coming back saying, well, we didn't hear about it.
Maybe a
What are we gonna do? I'd really like
Reaching out to the
I'd really like to see if, or is that a question that they are gonna be doing, or how does this work out?
So we will do it by posting and putting out the public hearing notice, posting it on our website. We did not opt for, but we do have the option to do some other interactive things, but basically it is our public hearing notice process, our website. We could do some news releases, I would think.
How about the board at Whitson and Floral? We could put a message, post a message there. That gets
Absolutely.
a lot of traffic.
Don't we have a phone message where the city calls a robocall?
Yeah, could do that the day before the public
I
hearing.
just like to.
Yes, we do.
I just like to inform as much as people we can.
Yeah.
And just so we could go out, be out there and walk around and be able to say, hey, we let everyone know.
And
Yeah,
if we could
everybody
do
should
it
know.
bilingual as well,
That's a good point.
if we could do it in English and Spanish.
Thank you. Those are good suggestions we can add to the outreach.
Sure, we haven't closed the public
So
hearing.
do you want to open the public hearing?
I never closed it. I just brought it back to the council.
Just to address Jim's point, the way I drew the maps, it puts all the council people at the east side of town. That's where you guys live. There's nobody on the west side. There's nobody in the Vadio. And while you do want consistency, you want to have the experience of the incumbents and their perspective that they've already earned, and they have earned the voters' choice. When you look at the map, there is nobody in the Vadio. There's nobody behind the high school. There's nobody, in that end of town at all. You guys are concentrated on one side of the city. That's not to say that you don't take the entire city's interests at heart. You vote from that perspective because that's how you were voted at large. But to have other cities have my councilman, this is my councilman, this is who I go to when I have a problem in my area, because they live 3 doors down from me, because they know what's going on. Whether you've lived there in the past, whether you have relatives there now, you're not living there. So the day-to-day stuff may not be seen by you. So
So I don't understand your point.
my point is that the map that I drew doesn't keep everybody where they are now.
And
It-
you want to have 3 in the same district
No,
so
no,
that
no.
2 are
No.
automatically out when it's
Well,
the map's
what I'm
going into
saying
effect?
is that the map that I drew is going to get people out. It is. Because you
And-
have,
And you're for that.
I am, just because I feel like it is necessary to live where you're representing. And that was the whole idea behind districting, that we want a representative in each area, in each district. And so the lines I drew are not going to keep all 5 of you in office, obviously. I don't know what you guys are proposing, but it may not seem like it's fair to you guys, but to me, I feel like I want my representative to live in my area of town. I want to be able to go 2 streets over and say, hey, we're having this issue over here. And they're probably aware of it because they live in that area. So I understand how Jim would like to keep those lines so that you all stay in office, but it's probably not going to be possible because you guys are all concentrated on the east side of town.
Yes, I think it's more than just because staying in office, it's because that's what the voters voted for, to reflect the will of the voters. And everybody had the same chance at running for the previous elections.
No, I
because they
understand
were
that.
at
I
large.
understand that. That's why I said,
Just to
it's,
clarify.
but I understand that and I agree with that. But at the same time, that's why we're doing districting.
And that's your position, and thank
Yes.
you for sharing that. We really appreciate it. Does anybody else have any comments at this point with that? Okay.
Joe Alvarez, 13838 South Locan, Selma, California. I'm in agreement with this young lady. I think that her her map of breaking down the city in 5 sections would be perfect because representation for each section is important in the sense that you can go out there and you can communicate with your representative in that part of the city. I think it's pretty awesome. Because as the city keeps on growing, we want to make sure that we involve everybody, and there's somebody representing you in your neighborhood or in your section that you have. So I think that I'd like a copy of her, the way she breaks it down. If I could get a copy of that, so I can see how she breaks it down. Would that be possible? So I just want to state that. I think that's a great idea, the way she broke it down, and understanding the map and the way that we can break down the city. Now, I got a question on the way that I think the lady had mentioned that I want to know a little bit more about that demand letter that she was speaking on. What's that about? The demand letter she spoke of?
Can she comment?
Yeah,
Is she on the speaker?
I can speak to that if now's appropriate.
Is it?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the way the law changed 2 years ago was before someone can sue a city for their at-large system, they now have to give a warning to the city. So it's just a simple demand letter, and it will typically be, it will always be from a law firm saying that we demand you switch from your at-large system, and if you don't switch, then we'll file a lawsuit. So once you get that demand letter, you're in a safe harbor time frame to switch. And right now the city, rather than wait for the demand letter, decided to just go ahead and switch, because once someone files the demand letter, they're entitled to $30,000. And they will always come up with a justification for the $30,000. Preliminary work they did, demographers' expenses, attorneys' expenses. It will always be $30,000 or more. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
It makes sense. Now, is that just total to this subject here or to this matter?
That's just the
Just to this
California
matter, right,
voting
to this
rights.
I'm sorry?
Just on the districting, this is that for this matter right here, that's for
The demand letter.
the
Yes,
demand letter.
the demand letter is, in this case, just applies to the California Voting Rights Act.
Okay. Well, is there something that, I'm in agreement with Councilman John, that, we can do a little bit more of an effort to communicate to the city, that we can get more presence here, that people can speak on, what they what they want done. And I don't know, I was gonna ask that question, what was the effort or what was the publicity that we put out there for the people to be able to be informed that this meeting was go forward. So I would love to, take a break and see if we can communicate a little bit more with the city and we can get a little bit more feedback from the city. Councilman, thank you.
Thanks for your input. As she explained, Joe, as she explained, there's a timeline. So we're in a timeline right now, so we have to conduct a certain number of hearings, or the city loses that safe harbor protection from that 30,000 plus letter, that demand letter. So the city has to move forward deliberately and with due notice. And so the deliberately part has to happen, but the due notice will also happen, and it's noted that, you know, the people should be informed that that's coming out, that these meetings are happening. And it'll be much easier to visualize what's gonna happen when the maps come out, because people can see it then.
And
comment.
us posting it and calling will, I mean, I think that's an effort.
All of that,
All of that's gonna be good.
yeah,
We need to get more input.
Still public, can I do this?
absolutely.
Marty Lynch, 1801 Second Street. What I'm wondering is, because if I understand right, the demographics for the mapping is not done?
No,
So,
no.
so that's all open to,
They're gonna propose several maps, right? And then they'll post them at the September council meeting for two meetings.
because one of the things I did like about what was spoken here earlier is the fact that I don't know who represents if you're looking at that sample, whatever I just saw, showed who would represent that area where we're at, you know, and I don't even know who that is and stuff. So right now, I understand it's all Selma. Selma votes for you folks, and I understand, right? And we're doing this in those districts. Their
It's
vote
going
will
into
count.
districts. It's never been districted before.
That's what I
So before
mean.
it's been at large, now it's gonna be chopped up into 5 districts.
Right.
And those districts, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they have not been envisioned yet. There'll be different district proposals, different
Sure.
scenarios put on maps that the public will be privy to and can comment on.
And what's the timeline on this?
Next week.
Right, the next so starting September, the first meeting in September and the second meeting in September. See the schedule right there?
Yeah.
The draft maps will be posted and will also be on the agenda of the city council for people to give their input on and comment on. And I imagine if they're postable, we could even put them on the wall on the side there too, so people could come to City Hall if they wanted to and take a look at them.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Could we, the city, purchase an ad in the paper and post that
The maps.
on the map? On that
Oh, you
Or
want
would
the
the, would the,
timeline
pu- would
With
the
the time-
paper
with
do
it-
it as a public service?
I don't know, you can ask the public, newspaper, if they can do that.
But you
for
don't-
service.
you-
She
you
said
don't
yes.
need-
She said yes.
They would?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just saying, because the city, we at large, we could put it out there to
I
the
would hope
community.
the city, because it's so vital to
Yeah,
the
I mean, we
future of
post
the
that-
city
we
that the
post
city
that
would,
out there.
the
Thank
paper
you.
would post it as a public
Welcome,
service.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Any,
Rose Gallardo Robertson, 1057 Mill Street. I'd just like to thank the council members, mayor, the ones that live outside of the barrio, born and raised on 2411 Bark Street, with my sister's council member Guerra. Just because you don't have somebody representing there, and we live outside of the district, or in another area, hands down and guarantee you, a lot of the citizens there will tell you who represents them. We are there a lot. We have family members there, cousins, you name it. We would never not represent an area we were born and raised in a place where I will talk about picking grapes, and being from that area has made me who I am today. And we will continue to represent regardless where we live, and we will continue to be fair as possible. And another thing I'd like to see if what we can do also, we got a lot of citizens talking about the 3-2 vote on mayor at large. If possible, Teresa Gallivan, if you could come to the next meeting and put it on record, is it 10% of the population to override the 3-2 vote of legit citizen signatures If so, can you bring that back to the next meeting? I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think that brings up a really important point, though. Districting, the problem that's happened in districting, and I was one of the proponents of districting, right? I really helped bring this up, and I'm proud to have been an advocate for it because areas of town should be represented. At the same time, I read over and over that the danger is people get too tied into representing their own district without having the interests of the city at large at heart too. People can start doing that and it can become 5 people against each other. And I think the city really we need to make sure that we don't do that. After we district, that everyone keeps that micro perspective on their district and the macro perspective at large on their town as well. I think that's really important to have both parts of the city at heart. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. When the maps come out, I think it's equally important to get it out to as many citizens as possible. To get input from those citizens on what people want, what people want to see. To our demographer, I would like to note, we talked about, the districts touching on the downtown. I would also like the districts to touch on the west side and of audio if possible. I think everybody should have a part of that when we district to make sure that everybody has that not only at heart. I know all the districts of the city are in my heart, close to my heart, but I would also like to represent part of that district as well in one of those potential maps. Did you hear that?
Shalise, did you catch that?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Okay. Any other comments today? Okay, with that, we'll. Okay.
I'm no pro or con either way. I just, for an understanding, we're going to a districting, is what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Scott?
That's right.
So that's what I just was wondering, and wanted to be
Going
clear
from
about.
at large to districts.
All right, sounds wonderful.
Thanks. With that, we will close the public hearing, bring it back to council. This is not an action item. This is a public hearing. The next meeting when the maps will be published is September. First meeting in September, okay? And I'm sure we'll be notifying the citizens in many different ways of that. Okay, with that, we will move on to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, Shalise.
Thank you.
9:30. Thought we were out, man.